This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
We're placing these check dams in relatively low flow situations. The aim is to collectively restore the side flow lines of the creek, and as a whole they will then collectively restore the catchment. Essentially what we're doing in Northern Hemisphere situations might be what a beaver does to make dams, and messiness is perfectly okay.
Today's episode of Rewilding in Action is supported by Wild Dunedin, New Zealand's Festival of Nature. Wild Dunedin work with local community groups, businesses, conservationists and nature lovers to share the magnificent wildlife and wild places of Otipoti Dunedin. To find out more about what's on at next year's festival between the 10th and the 19th of April, go to their website at wilddunedin.nz. This episode has been revised and replaces the original version to include appropriate acknowledgements. It was my error. I forgot that I had recorded some of our interview onto a different device. My apologies to my guest speaker and to listeners of the first airing for the omission made. Kia ora. Welcome to Rewilding in Action with me, your host, Maureen Howard. For this episode, I'm at the town of Wentworth Falls on the edge of the Blue Mountains of New South Wales. I'm here to find out more about the check dams that are being built by community groups along with the council to help slow the urban stormwater entering the Blue Mountain swamps. In a nutshell, a check dam is a fairly small, temporary structure that's been built across an area where water will flow at least some of the time, and its aim is to slow the water and to collect sediment. To find out more, I'm here with James Bevan. James has worked in the environmental industry for 16 years across multiple fields, including bush regeneration and environmental education. He's worked with the Blue Mountains Council now for 5 years in multiple roles of bush care and natural area management. James is speaking here as an independent to kindly share his extensive knowledge with us. So as such, the Blue Mountains City Council has not formally endorsed this particular interview.
I'd like to firstly acknowledge the traditional owners of our lands, the Gundungurra and Darug peoples, and acknowledge their long-term and ongoing relationship with the land. And we hope that this podcast will be a positive contribution to conserving and restoring that land.
Before we head on to council land that borders the national park here, James opens up the boot of the car and pulls out a spray bottle.
This bottle contains a mixture of 70% methylated spirits and 30% water. It's quite simple, and we spray it onto our boots before we enter the site, and it's designed to dry out the cells of any pathogens that might be present on our boots, specifically targeting the pathogen called Phytophthora. Volunteers and any professionals in the field, this is standard practice.
So just spraying the bottom of the shoes there, really. It might shine them up. I'm hopeful. All right, so we're entering in at Darwin Walk, which is a beautiful walk, which I took 2 days ago, actually. And we're already heading off the track. Oh.
So where we are here, and I can give you some photos. This view used to actually be not possible. You can see the remnant dead woody weed that's 8-ish metres tall. We had a mixture of cotoneaster, English holly evergreen dogwood, small-leaf privet.
Some of these species are familiar for us in New Zealand as well as being invasive weeds.
Let's walk further and I'll show you.
Yep, okay then. Let's go. Oh.
The key is that it's been a slow process that's used a number of different groups.
These are volunteer groups?
Yes.
From different communities around?
Look, local people.
Yeah.
And we've also had professionals working, and both are essential, really. Some of the hardest work requires use of things like chainsaws, so that can be most efficiently done when volunteers have actually come in and made access to the areas that are going to be chainsawed a bit more easy, so that it's not as laborious and painstaking to actually get to the site where the chainsaws need to be used.
Yes, and also I guess it's nicer to work without chainsaws, so if you're a volunteer, you can be doing quieter stuff and chatting to each other as you work away as well.
Absolutely, and enjoying the view.
It is, it's wonderful.
And as you just heard, the sounds of the birds.
And a beautiful sunny day. I know it's not always like this, but most days that I've been here.
You've been very lucky, Maureen. You've been very lucky.
Every day, in fact.
And yeah, as I said, we've got some photos which what I'm talking more about is photos of what used to be here. So literally where we're standing, we wouldn't have really been able to stand. This would have been 8 metre tall woody weeds that they're all bird dispersed, and you can still see we've got some leftovers. The other one I didn't mention is the cherry laurel. So the aim for the site was to not just control the woody weeds, but also to use the woody weeds to actually put in place what we call check dams.
James points to a stormwater pipe and a series of small check dams that have been made of local materials that are situated below it.
So what we've got up here, water and soil flows out from our roadways, and in high rainfall you actually do get quite a lot of sediment and water flowing down, and this soil's got pollutants in it. You really want to try and capture that near the source because it still has useful properties for plants to grow in, to store carbon, and the more soil that we lose creates erosion, and accumulatively we end up with an impact on we've got a critically endangered conifer at Wentworth Falls itself, which only grows on south-facing waterfalls in the Jamison Valley. And one of the impacts on that conifer is sediment and weeds that are moving down this catchment.
Right, so not only are you slowing the water, but you are preventing the weed source from getting into that very special habitat lower down. And it's quite a simple method. And most of these branches, are they your woody weeds, the old woody weeds?
Exactly, they're our woody weeds. We even found an old fence post that was on site from many years ago, and there's been a little bit of pine work, other options that get used on other sites that might have higher flow systems, so higher water volumes moving down. Where we'll go later on, we might use stones or coconut fibre that's been made into coir logs.
Yes.
And we might be in some of those systems actually trying to properly restore the flow regimes of the swamp and actually lead to recreation of something that mimics the swamp or approaches the function of a swamp. In this situation, we're literally within 10 metres of the road. The edge effects of stormwater, weed invasion, increased light mean that we can't realistically aim for recreation of what used to be here, but we can minimise the impacts.
Yes.
And we can reduce impacts on downstream values such as the dwarf mountain pine, swamps, and obviously the World Heritage Area in the National Park. We've actually got multiple lines of check dams because the water flows out, and the aim is actually to not just slow the water down, but where we can, try to spread the water out.
Yes.
When we're constructing check dams, we'll assess where the highest point is and aim to build up check dams along the contours so that the water gets spread out.
It's almost like a wooden swell. Would you call it that? Because a swell is designed to slow water.
That's right, yes. Everything gets done by here is literally by hand.
Yes, so I should say that these branches, they're all liftable.
Using 2 people, some of them.
Yeah.
You can see here how we've got our main output, but then we've got lots of minor flow lines where the water would run off the road. And so we're trying to ensure that in heavy rain events, the check dams serve a function for those flow lines as well.
And the nice thing about this approach is if you make a mistake, you can always move them.
That's exactly right. There's a continual process of improvement. You can see there's some piles of cut woody weeds because one of the species that I mentioned earlier, cherry laurel. The reason we've piled that on top of a fallen pine log is that if that woody weed touches the ground, it can re-sprout and layer.
Right, yes, we've got several species like that too.
Yes.
Sometimes we'll hang them up in the crook of a tree, or as you say, you need to find a place where the roots dry out. Yeah.
That's right.
Here they should dry out fairly fast, shouldn't they? It's quite a dry environment.
You'd get that perception today, or that impression today. We are on sandstone here, but at the moment, it seems that the weather's pretty unpredictable, but there's certainly a lot of rain been happening. So without going into climate forecasts, we know, the next rain event can't be too far away. That's the whole reason, essentially, why we're in some places where we're doing them there. We're doing them where we might even not currently have erosion. In some places where there might not be a lot of vegetative cover. In some sites it might be to restore erosion that has occurred. In others where previously we might have had deep-rooted species that would have stabilised the soil. If we know that that's possible, that relates back to the concept, even in farmland where you might not have existing erosion, but to prevent erosion in the future, it can be a wise option, for a farmer that's trying to restore what is a key asset for, their livelihood.
Absolutely. So I'm just really curious, actually. You've got me thinking about climate change, because I know in New Zealand, in a lot of places, there'll be less rain events, but when they do happen, they'll be bigger. And I was wondering if similar kind of predictions are here in the Blue Mountains, making this all the more important to do this kind of work.
Yeah, look, from what I understand, that I'm not a climatologist, but from what I've heard and read, there's a fair bit of rain forecast. So, and it can make life challenging in terms of how we plan our work. There's ongoing need for flexibility in terms of how we schedule and plan and then replan, because obviously some level of this work can be done in the rain, but if extreme weather events become safety hazards. So through many years of doing this sort of work, you develop skills to do it as efficiently as you can to make the most of the weather windows that you do have available.
Right.
And
you don't want your volunteers getting soaked, do you?
No. Some of this work would be done by volunteers, but it's a real team effort across multiple different teams that do this work. Yeah. So,
right. Yes.
In reality, you can't predict how many people we might have on any given day, how much work we get done on any given day. So that's the reality. So we've just got to keep all of the balls in the air, juggling, and stick it out in the long term.
And how many groups do you have working, of these community groups?
Look, there's 64 across the Blue Mountains City Council.
Wow, that's incredible. And all that community effort, they'll all be talking to their people in their community, their families as well, spreading that information about the things that we can do. And maybe it'll get them thinking about perhaps what they can do in their own gardens, if they do have a property, to even stop that water even closer before it even reaches the edge of the Blue Mountains.
That's right. Look, there's a lot that we do on our public lands, but there's also, I guess, a real opportunity for our community members to talk to each other and enjoy the experience of sharing knowledge and especially for current and future generations to learn what they can do. Council has a water sensitive urban design plan, so harvesting rainwater in a way that slows it down immediately off the roof can be a good way to then reduce what even reaches this site. What used to be here and what we're looking at is a Blue Mountain swamp, and a Blue Mountain swamp is formally classified under botanical definition as a freshwater wetland under the Keith vegetation classifications in New South Wales. And yet when you look at it, a lot of the time it does appear to be terrestrial.
I see what you mean, because we're looking at it, I'm seeing a lot of, is that bracken?
A lot of what you're looking at is not bracken. Okay. It's actually the most common species, or one of the most common species in the Blue Mountain swamp, and it's called coral fern.
Right.
So it is a fern like bracken, a vascular plant that evolved before seed plants and flowering plants. But Blue Mountain swamps have actually taken about 10,000 years to form since the last ice age. And they support a number of rare plants and animals. They support the Blue Mountains water skink. They support the giant dragonfly, which actually burrows underneath the swamp, spends most of its life underground. In terms of relating it back to the water, which is the key message that I want to try and relay, is that a Blue Mountain swamp, as formerly a freshwater wetland, acts like a sponge. That's a really simple analogy. So just like when you wet a sponge and use it to do whatever you do, clean, it'll store water for quite a long time. If you were to cut that sponge, water will start to drip out of it. If a Blue Mountain swamp that's directly below a stormwater pipe, such as what would have been here, gets a cut in it, the water no longer is stored like a sponge, but actually flows directly through the swamp.
Because it's coming at speed.
Because it's coming at speed, and the swamp as a living ecological community isn't able to provide that barrier because it hasn't evolved. The time frame that it's evolved has been a lot longer, 10,000 years to form. Since European colonisation, that we've had these urban impacts, it's not able to keep up.
But by doing this, you're helping to restore that original ecosystem function of having water come through slowly.
That's exactly right.
We walked down to the wetlands by the Jameson Creek to have a closer look at the coral ferns that are growing there.
It produces spores like ferns do, which is sexual reproduction, but it also produces a rhizome, which is asexual reproduction, and those two methods allow it to create such a dominant 80 to 90% plus ground cover.
And it's probably about maybe 3/4 metre high even, it's quite tall.
And if you were to walk in there, in some places, you can end up over your head.
Wow. And we've got the water down here. This is the Jameson's Creek.
Yep.
Okay, well let's head on to the next site.
Yes.
We've travelled a little bit further by car to the end of Falls Road and walked down the Wentworth Falls Lookout Track to the edge of the Blue Mountains National Park to have a look at the check dams that have been put in here.
This is literally within 50 metres of the national park boundary, close to the dwarf mountain pine on Wentworth Falls. Because we're further away from the edge of urban areas, when we take out woody weeds, we're going to facilitate a really exciting process, which is restoration of Indigenous native ecosystems. Whereas on the previous site, we were facilitating rehabilitation, and that's a whole different thing. We're essentially doing what would happen if you go out in the bush and you see a large old tree fall down in the canopy, seedlings that are underneath it grow up. What we're doing here, we've taken out a large stand of woody weeds that was trapping sunlight from reaching the ground and facilitating photosynthesis. We're now allowing those seedlings to grow, and we're now allowing that regeneration of the native ecosystem to occur.
So it's about maybe 15 metres in diameter, this little light well that we've created. We're not wanting to clear fell, but make a light well. And what's next?
So the material that we've cut here, we've started to move across about 50 metres where there is an eroded flow line. And we'll go and show you that. And the cut material can then be used to create check dams. And you'll then facilitate the process of slowing surface water, conserving soil, storing carbon, and reducing the impacts on downstream dwarf mountain pine as well.
Yeah.
Shall we go and have a look at the check dams?
Yeah.
All of this material, we could take it with us, Maureen.
Yeah. All right, okay. Put me to work.
You can take one.
So you want
take this one?
Oh, you give me the big one there.
And we're literally just going to walk across. We've made it a bit easier for you because we've already been doing this recently.
Oh, this is a beautiful one. Now, you did this one, didn't you?
I started it.
Yeah.
And then other people have...
So it looks a little bit like a wattle and daub, except, of course, the branches are well dead, so they're not pliable. But it's a similar kind of concept, isn't it?
It is, and you'll be surprised there's still an element of flexibility. And what we've done is moved the branches in a way so that when the water hits them, it isn't going to move. So if you try and hold this, Maureen, and try and shift it back and forward, it's just really not moving anywhere.
Yeah, no, it's not. And because you've got the branches, the horizontal branches have been woven in and out, and you've got these vertical ones that you've hit into the ground with a mallet.
That's right. So we can...
Put a few more in here. Just lopping off some branches. This will be for the horizontal. There we are. Fantastic. Now that feels pretty sturdy. And collectively, of course, all of these branches act in unison and create the strength that you need.
We're placing these check dams in relatively low flow situations. We're not putting large branches across the creek where they're going to flow into, for example, where there's a track crossing or a constructed bridge that's going to damage or require infrastructure maintenance. The aim is to collectively restore the side flow lines of the creek, and as a whole, they will then collectively restore the catchment.
It's an awesome idea.
And we've deliberately placed the top of the check dam well above the existing soil surface.
Okay, yeah.
So that there will be a barrier above which the initial build-up of soil won't overtop. The check dam will break down over time, and we can keep building it up. If we put the check dam too low, then the soil's just going to overtop.
Right. Okay. What about my log?
I think this is a major one, Maureen. I
need a bigger dam.
So the thicker we make any check dam, the more sediment it will trap. So it's actually quite... So now that's in there, that's not moving at all.
Yes. And then, of course, each of these check dams, this is just one check dam of many, so they're all doing their bit.
And we don't need aesthetics with check dams. If you're looking at a larger scale agricultural situation where you've got large trees falling over a river, essentially what we're doing in Northern Hemisphere situations might be what a beaver does to make dams, and messiness is perfectly okay.
With another check dam complete, I asked James when the next big rain event might be due to put these check dams into action.
Well, I can't wait, and I have to admit that I do enjoy sometimes coming out even during or just after heavy rain events. I'm not going to try and predict rain, Maureen, but whenever it happens, it happens.
And then you come out to see if it's working.
That's right. That's right. And even just to see which direction exactly the water flows, because you never know, and which direction it's moving and how it's moving through check dams and where soil is building up exactly. That tells you the nuances of your check dams that have been effective and what reinforcements might be required.
It's such a great idea, and I really hope that it can be used in other situations to really slow the water and restore that functioning. You know, obviously you've worked here in the Blue Mountains for a lot of years now. What is it that you love about it so much?
I spent my teenage years here, and now I live here with my partner. It's home for us. Being able to have places that I only have 15-minute drive from work. I can't describe it really, Maureen. So it's extraordinarily rewarding. I'm part of the solution. I have a very purposeful career.
Thanks very much to James Bevan from the Blue Mountains of New South Wales for this fascinating and fun interview about check dams. I especially love the idea of them being made by communities from woody weeds. It's such a great win-win solution. James would also like to acknowledge that the content presented in this podcast is the result of accumulated knowledge, and that leaky check dams are one tool in our toolkit which are only suitable for low volume flow lines. Current water and soil restoration in the Blue Mountains has been developed and delivered over decades by practitioners across the Blue Mountains. Their work has been informed, inspired and motivated by many sources, including New South Wales Alpine Catchments Wetland Restoration Practitioner Roger Good. Thank you for listening. I'm Maureen Howard. I will leave you with some birdsong from the Blue Mountains that's loved by my guest, James Bevan, a rewilder who is letting nature take the lead.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.